Welcome guys. In this video, we will be learning about conventional hosting versus cloud hosting. So what is the difference and how will we be able to distinguish between both and say how will we be able to decide on different things that which one we need to prefer. So conventional hosting. This is also known as on-premise hosting and it is an older way of hosting an application. Now, consider few things. Suppose there is a company and it has an application that requires few things. What things it requires? Say it needs to have a server, say application server. Say it is say Apache. It is based on Apache, so it is using PHP, some version, say PHP 7, and it needs additional server for database. So database is handled by Oracle. Then say it needs something for say storage. So high storage, right? Now it is using say Linux to host the data, right? Now here the requirement is at least three servers and say they need a good hardware for handling 1 lakh users. Now if we go through this means that each and every server should be able to bear 1 lakh users, right? Here what all things you may require. Let us consider the first server. So first server may require a dual CPU motherboard. Single will also work, so let us just go with the basic things. Single CPU motherboard, a rack case, rack itself. Then we require power supply. Then we need processor. We require server RAM and with ECC servers require ECC memory. This is not the same memory that we use in our machines. Next thing we need SSD and a few other things as well. So let us just consider about this particular configuration. So what all money I would be ending up paying. Here rack case, this may cost up around say 200 to $300. I'll consider it as $200. Then say rack itself, it will cost you around $500, or let's just go with the cheapest one, so it may cost you around $250. Then power supplies is very important because motherboard will be getting power from it. So here power supply would be costing you around say $500 to $600. I'll just go with the basic cost. Processors are not cheap. Processor may cost you around $1,500 to $2,500. I'll go with the 2500 one. Server RAM will cost you around the same for a basic configuration for 1 lakh users. You need a high storage SSD, which will again cost you around $500 to $600. So let us just go with $500. Right? I've not included the cost for motherboard here. Motherboard may be costing you around $1,500 for this particular configuration. Now here, the thing is that if you are paying this much money just for the hardware, I have not included any software yet. This is just for single system. Now the similar say things would be required except for the rack. You will be requiring say a rack case, you will be requiring power supply, you will be requiring a processor, server RAM, SSD and motherboard. All these things would be required. So this thing costs you a lot of money. So here say $5,000, right? If we add up this whole amount, what will be the total? Let us just see that, and I will not be including rack here. So here 200 plus 500, $700, 700 plus 5,000. So it's $5,700 plus $2,000. So around $7,700 we are simply paying up for the basic configuration, which I'm not sure that it will be capable of bearing 1 lakh users. So $7,700. So these prices are in USD and these are just approximate prices. So here the thing is, if you multiply it by 3, so you'll be paying around 25,000 or say 21,000. Let us just consider the cheapest one. Say you'll be getting some discount as well. Say USD for 3 basic servers. This is just the basic cost. There are some upfronts as well. Say you have electricity cost, you have power backup cost, then physical security, and one of the main things, you're hosting an application. It needs to connect to the servers, it needs to connect to the internet. So here, say 10 or say a gigabit Ethernet, it is very important. So here, these things are something that you will be paying up regularly. For example, if servers are using electricity and they are at least consuming around say 5,000 watts. Cooling is not included yet. Power backup, say you pay say for power backup you need to have UPS and a high quality one. So in case of a power outage, at least it should be able to bear the load for 5 6 hours. Next thing, physical security. You need to pay for physical security as well. Suppose if someone comes up and say damages your servers, then again it is something that you don't want. You don't want any kind of physical access to your servers. So here you would be paying up for that. Gigabit internet, it is not cheap. It is not that say cheap. You end up paying a lot of money, and all these things you end up paying monthly. So these are the recurring costs. So here, considering one thing, you are paying a lot of recurring costs as well. And I'm not including any cost involved here that is for say the upgrades. Maybe your server requires an upgrade after 5 years or say 6 years. It requires. The applications change, the things change. You won't be sticking to the older version of your application. You need to evolve. This is something that humans do, right? So here, instead of keeping the older hardware, you may need to say upgrade things. And here in conventional things, in an on-premise hardware, what problems we face is our older hardware is of no use, and we have to upgrade to a newer one. Okay, that is fine, but again we end up paying the extra cost, which is an overhead again on our own application, and it involves a lot of time for say upgrade, time for migration, and a lot of things. So here we we end up spending a lot of money in conventional hardware. What's next? So the next thing is cloud hosting. These are servers on the network, servers on the cloud. Now, how it is helpful for us? Cloud hosting is something that is, as the name says, as the definition also says, it is say pay as you go. So here, whatever things you're using, you're just renting the things. So here, renting means that you are not purchasing the hardware. Secondly, no cost for no extra cost for softwares. Why? Because we don't need to purchase licenses. The licenses are purchased by the cloud hosting provider itself. Next thing, here the benefit is that Suppose we were paying $7,700 for a hardware. Now, if we use it for 5 years, then we will be able to use this, uh, utilize this money. What if we end up paying around $200 a month for the same similar hardware, say config. So what's the benefit here? You already know the benefit now. We are not paying excessive money. Next thing about cloud hosting is that we do not over provision. No over provision, right? What's that? So suppose your application using say has a typical user base of say 20,000 users, right? 20,000 users come a day. But on a special note, sometimes your users go up to 1 lakh users on special occasions. Now, what will you prefer here? If you are a conventional hosting user, right, you would be going for this configuration on a general note. Why? Because you don't want to lose your customers. Everyone wants to retain their customers, and here if the application is set up for 20,000 users, it will never ever support 1 lakh users. But yes, if a hardware is configured for 1 lakh users, you can give 20,000 users. It is just a under usage. Here the problem is that this involves a lot of cost. There is a lot of money involved in this particular configuration. So here, what if we do something? We scale up and scale down. But this is only possible in case of cloud hosting. So what we do in cloud hosting is that we usually use the configuration. Say if we are seeing 20,000 users, what I'll do is I'll configure the server for 25,000 users on a for general purpose. And what I'll do is I'll scale it up to 1 lakh users in special cases. So here, this means that I have that flexibility of ramping up and ramping down whenever I require that particular configuration. Now, what is the benefit here? Again, it involves cost. So here, suppose 25,000 users per day costs me around 100 USD. 1 lakh user costs me around 300 USD. So which one I will prefer? I will always prefer paying up less whenever I'm requiring higher hardware, higher configuration. I'll just ask my cloud hosting provider to ramp up the performance and I'll pay the extra amount for the time I'm using it. Now the thing is that I'm considering these amounts for monthly basis, but actually we end up paying per hour. So this means that if I require a resource, say for 5 days, now this means that suppose I'm paying up around zero point 0.5 USD per hour, right? Now here, what will be the math used here? I'm using it for 5 days. So here 5 multiplied by 24, simple, multiplied by 0.5. So what is the total? So it will cost you around 60 USD. Now for 5 days you end up paying 60 USD. Now this is something that you may require, but I'm considering this as a very high-end configuration server. So here the thing is that you don't have to pay around $60,000 or $5,000 or any amount which you won't be able to use it. So cloud hosting gives you that benefit. Plus there is something, no, say, physical security required, no power backup required, no power supply required, no, say, uh, no gigabit internet required. So here these are the things that are not adding up in case of a cloud hardware. Everything is hosted. Your machine that you use comes up with a plan. Yes, you may be required to pay some money later on whenever you reach that threshold value, but still it is not that much that you usually pay for your own on-premise, say, hosting. So this is something that is very helpful for us, right? So this was for this video. In case you have any queries, you can feel free to ask in comments. Thank you.